Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel for today's video. I want to talk to you about the narcissist and the many mistakes that they make. So let's jump in. The narcissist is an interesting character because a lot of times the reason why you left the narcissist or allowed things to end is because they cause so much chaos in your life. But it's not only your life, they cause chaos continuously in their own life. And it's almost as if they don't realize what they're doing or they realize what they're doing and they enjoy chaos, which we do know that is the case. But they will put on the act. They're always putting on an act. That's the other problem. They're always putting on an act, wearing a mask, in the act of victimhood. Woe is me because look what happened to me. But look what you did to cause all these issues that happened to you. And because you're the one with them, you get blamed for it all because you have to regulate it. And you're the only one that's sensible in this situation. So then they leave because they don't want to deal with their issues, right? So they'll rage out or they'll do silent treatment and then they'll just run off monkey branch to some other third party when they have many of them and you've kind of figured that out. And sometimes you've caught them, sometimes you didn't. Sometimes you researched it and found it or whatever, because over time, if you're a truth teller, it doesn't take very long for you to know if they're not with you and they can't give you any kind of good idea of where the hell they were. Listen, a truth teller can see the lies through the narcissist. And if it's not in the very beginning, it's eventually. The problem is because they get you into your ego state when they first meet you, and then they do all that love bombing, and they get you connected to them through that hot and that cold, and they spell you. There's a spelling that comes with them regardless. And I think people on my channel have realized that, or I've spoke on it so much, I think that people have some sort of clear understanding on my channel in regards to that. And I don't want to harp on it forever because it's kind of monotonous after a while, but there's witchcraft involved. Just by the way they manipulate. To some degree, what witchcraft is to manipulate, which is to lie, right? To lie and tell you things aren't as though they seem. And it's because of what they're telling you, the information you're receiving from them, or where they are. They're always lying and they're always cheating and they can't be trusted. That's the product of lying and cheating, is now we can't trust you. So then you can't be trusted, but they're lying and they're cheating because they don't want to deal with any of their issues to have a healthy relationship. So then it just steamrolls into a big ball of crap. That's why people call them crud balls, because it's like turns into a big crud ball, your whole relationship, because that's all that they ever put out is crud, and it turns into a crud ball, a big one, and you're involved in it. Then they want to destroy you when they leave and tarnish and tear up and destroy your reputation. They want to destroy your reputation. They want to destroy your character. They want to destroy any relationships that you may get into. They're going to start talking to those people and trying to get them to leave you alone by starting up some new lies that they just made up because they're jealous or envious or greedy, or they felt like you one-up them because it's always a competition. And this is where the narcissist has these problems, and they don't forgive, they don't forget. Then all of their values, morals, and ethics are upside down from what I call regular humanity is. And regular humanity is, I label it like this. You have, at the lowest level is the narcissist types. Those are evil people. Under the level of a 200 is going to be evil people. And it's because of that vibration. The vibration is demonic vibration. They're dealing with something. They're dealing with some kind of entity. You can call it however you want. A jinn, dark energy, entity, demon, whatever. But nevertheless, it's malevolent. It's not out for your best interest. It's not out for their best interest. It's out to have power and control and to get any type of lust out of that avatar, labeled as the narcissist, that they're in full control over by any means necessary. They want power, control, and lust. And they want supremacy in your life. They want to be the big dictator to a small country. They want to be the bully. They want to be the one always on top. So to do that, they have to dupe you by cheating on you. So they always have you one-upped. If you, like, for instance, they always think someone's going to cheat on them, so they cheat on you first. That's kind of what I'm getting at. So whenever they feel like that if you break up with them because it's rendered fair, more than fair, then they're going to tell you all these evil things they did to you. And one of them's going to be that I cheated on you with your best friend because that's what they do. They try to cheat on you with somebody very close to you. It could be a relative, a brother. It could be your father or your grandfather. It will be anybody. It could be your neighbor that you hang out with on a daily basis. And sometimes they will tell you, and sometimes they won't tell you, but you'll find out later through third-party friendships or whatever. Not relationships, but they're just friends, or they're supposed to be. And that hurts worse. You find out later they cheat on you from somebody else versus at least tell me. And sometimes they will if they want to, what in psychology they would call it going for the jugular. The narcissist always goes for the jugular whenever you get in an argument. They're out to slice and dice and to see the blood splatter. They want to kill your spirit. And they're always going for the jugular. If you notice you get in an argument with a narcissist, you don't even have to really say anything, but if you're going to detach from them and you're the one that's initiating it, they go straight for the jugular. It's really mean words. You'll be very hurt by it because you have invested so much energy into it. And I say energy because that's what it really is. But it's really your emotional energy that they've been manipulating. And it hurts worse because when you're spellbound, you really want them, but it's driven out of a lust. Spells are driven out of lust. I don't know if you realize that, but if you've dealt with it, see, this last situationship I was in, it was a lot of spelling. She was spelling me, and then other people were spelling me because apparently they were a part of a, and still are, I guess, I don't know, part of a coven. I think the coven kicked them out. They're so bad. Or they have so many cases and they're so bad. You know, that's the thing. Narcissists, they hang out with people that don't even like them. And these are things that the empath will see. Now, we have our own issues because we didn't choose to love ourselves enough and we let these people in. But at least we got tricked into it on a level of seduction and witchcraft and them being the, what they call the playa from the Himalaya. And that's what they want to be. They're all playas from the Himalaya. And then when they get caught, they come back in acting all vulnerable again. But because you're so energetically entwined with them, a regular relationship may have a cord maybe this big that's energetic because that's what's healthy. But with the narcissist, you have a big cable like this hooked into you. It's like the Matrix when Neo woke up and he broke that thing off, that cable that was sucking his fuel from him so that these other entities that were deadened could survive. And they were telling you stuff. They tell you stuff. That's kind of what the cult tells you in movies. They say the cult tells you the truth in movies. And that's true. And a lot of them are CIA based. There's probably not a movie in America that doesn't first go through the CIA and get the okay through them. All those producers and production agencies all have to go through sanctions of the government so that the government is aware of what you're being fed. And it's usually something under the cover of night to some degree, which would be like the CIA or DARPA or something like that. It's going to be, whenever you know of the secret council police, then there's going to be one that you don't know. So, you know, before in the 1950s and stuff, when I think that's when the FBI came out. CIA was probably right after it or at the same time. It was around 1950. You're talking about these individuals, whenever it came out, it wasn't really talked about a lot. And the news didn't spread too much of who the FBI was or the CIA. But now, as much as it rolls off our tongue, is what I'm saying is now that we know about the CIA, then they're going to be open with that. But you got to know that there is another umbrella under that, beyond that you don't know. And that's probably something along the lines of DARPA, where they're getting into controlling of energy and controlling of the feelings of the country through the media. They regulate that. They regulate your drinking water, the fluoride in the water to numb you and dumb you. It's fluoroxetine, it's Prozac. It's really the leftover substance from making fertilizer. It's very toxic. It will melt concrete. When they have to pour it into the water system, they have to wear these thick suits and they have to really watch themselves. They say it's good for protecting your teeth, but it really makes bones brittle. If you can find a way to get off fluoride, it's the best thing you could probably do because it drops your IQ like 10 to 12 IQ points, which is a big deal when you're talking about middle ranges of people that are on the average level. 10 to 12 points makes a big difference on your IQ. You're talking about 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you're 12 IQ points duller, I'll say. they want you to be numbed in America and in the world, really. So fluoride helps that. It keeps you more accepting of the things the government and the world is trying to pass in laws and rules and regulations. And it gets you to relax a little more and accept it. It's like docile. These are things that happen. Fluoride came out, and it started in the water, I think, in 1945. And I think it's around FBI and CIA and fluoride in the water. And these dark projects like MK Ultra all came from the German army, the military. I'm not going to use the original name of that military. We'll just call it the German army. When the German army, they were doing all of these unregulated scientific projects. One of them was a space project, and the head of our space program was Walter von Braun. He was a German rocket scientist. So we brought him over here. 2,000 families, 2,000 German families, top-notch scientists that were evil, a lot of them evil people, and they were people that used manipulations, so you can call it witchcraft, to perform all these projects on people. And we brought all those scientists over here. Any scientists during the war, at the end of the war in 1945, that surrendered to the Western Bloc. When we met Russia, they took over the Eastern Bloc of Berlin is where we met Russia, because the Germans had started so many military conquests. That's where they were complete idiots. But it was really that war, and many of these wars are constructed. They were funded and constructed by the same people that went over there and destroyed them. So they're all hoax. A lot of times they're hoax wars, because what you have is these big military families and these big banking families, like the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers. You're talking about Henry Ford was involved in the Bush family. That's where they made a lot of their money. There's no way Germany is size of Lake Michigan, the state of Michigan. There's no way a country that size could operate the way that it did, and to be so destructive as they were. There was a lot of cutoff points that we could have strategically wrecked them and put a stop to the war a long time ago, when they were in France and trying to take over France a long before they got as far as they did. They went as far as to starting a war with Russia at the same time, starting a war on the Western. They were trying to take care of France and England, and along with the Italians, fighting alongside Mussolini was the other dictator that teamed up with the Germans. But it didn't last very long. And these are people that are, psychopaths, really. But a lot of what we hear in the news about, or in the history books of how that war occurred, is not true. We funded that war. A lot of people, high-level American businessmen, they funded that war, and bankers, so that they could make more money. I mean, the Bush family, I think that's where they made their money during that war. The great-grandfather, I think his name was George Herbert Walker Bush, and then there was George Bush Herbert Walker II, and then there was George Bush, our last president. He was the third in that line. But the great-grandfather you don't hear about, George Herbert Walker Bush, was the one that worked in New York City in the top banks, and he was the one that was funneling the money. And I think it was coming through, like, what was the first country that took over, like Poland? He was funneling it through Poland, so it didn't look like it was going to the Germans. And same thing with Henry Ford. He was, you don't get all those war machines by mining that kind of iron or out of Germany. It came from Henry Ford. A lot of that was shipped over there pre-war, so they could build all this military up. So it was kind of like a controlled army, but it was also a cult army. It was called the Vril Society. That's what really ran that World War II. And that's why you had the Germans going to the Tibetan monks, and they were going inside the Himalayas, which I talked about. They also went down to Antarctica and started their own project where they called it New Schwabenland. It's called like Base 311, I think it was. And there's a whole bunch of craziness that went down there. All the U-boats and all the things they claimed Antarctica is. It's the one place that it's the one area of the world that all the countries in the world agreed to never own Antarctica, which is really funny because mankind always wants to own everything. So what's the deal with that? And it's because of, like I said, the geocentric Earth model that we're living on, the flat Earth. They don't want people going out there because that's where the edges of the Earth are, the edges of the dome. They even spoken about where they had explorers in the early 1900s, mid 1900s. What was his name? Admiral Byrd. And he went down there and he would tell you, he even came back and went on live TV in the 1950s, talked about how there was more lands beyond the ice wall, which is holding in all the water. But there's also scenarios where people had flown airplanes into the dome because they thought it could keep going, and they destroyed the plane and they perished. So there's a lot of things. I mean, they shot high-powered nuclear warheads at it. They call it Project Fishbowl. You could look it up. But Project Paperclip is where we took these German soldiers over here in asylum, and some of the projects were the fake space program that they made. Even Walter von Braun had said we could never get to the moon. Or what did he say? No, he said we could never get to where did we go? There was if the moon, he was saying that if the moon was as far away as they say it was, we could never get there and get back and all the things we did. Supposedly we went there and it was like 500 degrees all the time. It was during the time of solar flares, the hottest point time of the moon. But the Earth is not spinning and flying. We could never build something to shoot out of that and then bring it back in. They went to the moon for like, I don't know, 5 days or something. When it's 500 degrees all day long, they shot off, they dropped Jeeps and played golf and did all kinds of, they were probably in the Grand Canyon. In fact, I was just in Hawaii and they said that they practiced in one of the volcanic structures because it was set up just like the moon. They probably went down there and it was really the moon videos. If you see the real true moon videos, they're not believable. There's a 1,000 things wrong with the moon landing videos, everything about it, the glares of the sun, and where they took the best pictures in the world, and somehow they were able to like do different things. They had their snaps undone, and just things that were not scientific at all. And they even got caught rolling a camera through a little like fisheye lens in the space shuttle. And it was round, so they made the Earth look round, and they were rolling it back on these planks to make it look like it was getting further and further. It's all hoax, y'all. It come from the Germans. The Germans had a lot of hoaxery, and they had a witchcraft coven that ran it. They were conjuring up all kinds of things. That's why they were going to look for all of the holy grails and things, because they thought that it was going to bring them power, and they were going to go into the inner earth and the hollow earth. I don't know if you understand any of that, but that's a whole nother interesting topic. And I think it was called Base 311. You could look it up. But the fluoride started because they used to use it in those camps to make the people docile. But, it's one of them things. It's like, well, here I am talking about narcissism and this war. So anybody that surrendered scientists to the Western Bloc came to America, England, and France. And anybody that went to and surrendered to the Western Bloc or the Eastern Bloc, anybody that surrendered to the Eastern Bloc went to Russia and China and what they called, the Warsaw Pact, because we're like the G20 or whatever. We're the Allied and they were the Axis, or they were the Warsaw. I guess the Axis was the Germans. And that's kind of how it worked. That's why if you talk to people that really know true history, they're going to tell you the space program was the German space program minus that flag they had on it. You just take some paint and rub it off, because America and Russia never knew anything about a space program. They got them from the German scientists that surrendered. And that's where you got the CIAs of the world, in my opinion. They took all these SS officers and they used the Catholic Church gave them a lot of false identities to get them out of there. But the first CIA was the Catholic Church. because they were in every country, and you couldn't really do anything to them. They were the priests. What are you gonna do? Hurt the priest? You'll have a mob of people after you. So that's really interesting stuff. But some people say the Vatican is the world's church, and America is the world's army, and England is the world's bank. Go figure. So it's interesting, the country that is the one known for the bank accounts and things was Switzerland, the Swiss bank accounts, right? Well, check this out. During World War I and World War II, neither army, neither military, they took over all Europe, right? Or they were fighting all in Europe. They took over all of Europe. The Germans did, at least in World War II. And in World War I think they were more successful in World War I, beginning of it. But anyway, they did that, and neither army, Axis or Allied, in both wars neither one of them bombed Switzerland, because they were the Swiss banks. They're not going to bomb the bankers. So, highest paid country per capita in the world. They only got bombed by accident, if they did. And that's how they became the Red Cross, y'all. They became the Red Cross because they're known as the Swiss Army knife with the Red Cross, right? That's where the Red Cross started. It was started in Switzerland because they made up some gimmick to where, well, we're going to help and heal. We don't care if it's an Axis or an Allied soldier. Whoever lands on the property of Switzerland would get help medically. And that's how it went down. Such BS. And that's how the war... See, this is how all of this stuff started in the Middle East as well. But it kind of gets controversial, so I don't want to really get too involved in it. But basically what happened, there was, in Germany, there was a lot of... During World War I think it's called the Second Reich, because the Third Reich was World War II, those soldiers. And so there was the First Reich, which was what they would call, I think, the barbarians back in, the 1600s or something, when they took over Rome or something like that, something weird. And which is all really a false narrative. But anyway, and then the Second Reich was like World War I, and then Third Reich was World War II. So it kind of like, it all started, World War II started because of what happened in World War I. But in World War I, the Germans weren't so much the antagonizers. They were kind of doing what they were supposed to do, the way I understand it. They were kind of like a world power at the time, and they were kind of defending themselves because they were having a lot of problems with France and England and places like, and Spain. They were losing their power because, things were changing. There was a changing of the guards. And so Germany was rising up, and they didn't like that. So they were causing a lot of issues, kind of like how the narcissist does in your life. So the Germans defended themselves in World War I, and they were doing very well. They were just telling everybody to just, put up their white flag and let it end. But then what happened was there was groups of, how do I say? They were people of, well, they call them Ashkenazi Jewish people, Jewish folks. And they lived, because the story goes that when Israel was destroyed, eventually, after all these wars, when Rome was occupying them, after Christ was crucified and stuff, there was a lot of wars, and they were fighting amongst themselves and things. And what they did was they supposedly dispersed out into the East, up into Europe and all these different countries, and they call them Ashkenazi Jews because they were kind of like, I think they spoke Yiddish, or I forgot it's been a long time since I studied this stuff. But anyway, Yiddish, I think it is. My battery's going dead. I'm sorry, I'm not talking about narcissism. But anyway, so they spoke Yiddish, and so, but it was kind of like a lot of people believe in history that there was a lot of Turkish involvement there, where they became with the Yiddish. There's a whole scenario about that. But anyway, during World War I, the Germans were winning the war, and they were kind of doing the right thing, is the way I understand it. So they had a lot of Jewish influence in Germany. So they got with, the story goes, they got with England and France and Spain, those places. And they said, well, we can get America in the war. Because, see, a lot of the newspapers and the media, that was the media back then, mainly. And it was run by a lot of Jewish organizations. So the agreement was that we can get America to come into the war and defeat the Germans if you give us, the Holy Land back, because it was being occupied and run by England. So they made this agreement, and it was, under the cover of night. So they started printing up all these newspaper articles to where, say, the Germans were doing things like hurting children really bad. And the next thing you know, America jumped in and said, we can't have the children getting injured like that. It was very brutal stuff. And you need to watch that, because you hear that stuff that happened in Jordan, and you'll hear it in Iraq as well. Like in Iraq, they would say they were throwing them out of incubators and all this. Whenever you start hearing about children getting involved in wars to where we throw ourselves into it, it may be not it may not even be true. So I always kind of question that, because even in the Kuwaiti situation, it was kind of found out that wasn't even true, quite to that level. I don't know. I don't want to get any people like freaking pissed at me or anything. But the true story seems to go as if they made this pact. I forgot what it was called, but it was like this kingdom or this castle. It's called the Palace of Versailles in France. Oh, it's Millennial Kingdom left over, y'all. No doubt. Beautiful. If you know the original backdrop to that, it's amazing. That we couldn't build a bathroom, but they could have, like 150 amazing fountains running all the time, and they transfer the water like 12 miles through this. They called it like the eighth wonder of the world, this machine they built. And this is back before the 1800s, when we had these things that were built that should have never been built with the technology that we have. That's why I have that Revelation and 505 channel, because it's BS. But anyway, they made this agreement. I forgot what it's called now. So after the war, the Germans got destroyed, and they had to go sign the agreement, because, it was the Darfur Agreement or something like that. They had to go, when you lose a war, you have to sign the agreements to what you're going to repay back and what you're signing for. Why are you surrendering? You're almost like apologizing and acceptance of the things that you've done, right? So when they went to go sign this agreement, they realized that a lot of people that were popular, maybe Jewish folks in their country and in other countries as well, were the ones that they felt like they were traded in. It was kind of like Germany in World War I was like, we always treated you like we wanted to be treated, is kind of the idea. And then you guys like stabbed us in the back. It's kind of the idea. And so that's what led up to World War II. Because what they did is they continued to print money to pay off this debt as well, which you can't do nowadays, because it'll put you in a constant inflation. In Germany, after World War I, they had to pay them 3 times a day, because inflation was rapidly increasing per day. So you could have a wheelbarrow full of marks, which is the German money, and you couldn't get a loaf of bread with it at some point in time, because they had printed so much money to pay this debt, this war debt, off. And when you print money, it comes out of your pocket. It's a back tax, basically. That's why whenever they do this quantitative easing, when it comes to our federal government, it's basically weakening the money to give it away. So it sounds like it's a great idea, because, you're giving it away to a bunch of people, maybe that need it, maybe they don't, because there's always these bonuses involved and stuff. And what it's doing is it's dropping the value of your money in your pocket. So anyway, so when they went to sign this agreement, it was like, yo, you guys cheated us. So that's kind of what led up to World War II. And that's how they got the land of Israel in 1949. It wasn't, see, they got to make it seem like they got to make it seem as if it looks like it's leading up to a tribulation war. So that's what the enemy has been portraying, but we're really in the little season. So what he's doing is he's kind of mimicking, because he is the controller of the world, this world system. That's why I said, just like the narcissist rules out of chaos, so does all of these countries, because they're ruled by chaotic Narcissists. I mean, the fallen system is what's ruling a lot of these rulerships. I don't know if there was ever a kingdom outside the millennial kingdom that was ever ruled by God. Maybe they were all, they may have had some good people in there. But at the very top, outside of King David and Solomon, there probably wasn't too many really, real, true kingdoms of God. Although even Solomon became a taskmaster, and Absalom got worse. His son, the third generation. I mean, they might have. I think they put him. Yeah. I don't even want to talk about that. All of this stuff is very controversial these days. So that's why they made a coin in World War II, because it started out with the Germans were like, it was the German thing, the flag on one side, and then the Jewish one on the other. And the idea was, look, we just kind of they wanted those people out of their country. And so they made a coin, which was an agreement that they would transfer any individual that was of the Ashkenazi Jewish folks back to Israel, and they would pay for their trip. But at the same time, there was this oppression that was starting because they were, some say they were pissed off or whatever, but like I said, it's all been a concocted thing behind the scenes before it even gets started. It's almost like agreements are made before wars are started. Sometimes like World War I started from one bullet, like one prestigious man gets killed or something. Anyway, but that's why it's good to know your history a little bit. The Lusitania, that had something to do with it. And then you also had the Hindenburg situation that blew up in New Jersey, and all these different things that that sometimes are setups, is all I'm saying, from these higher powers, and they get all of the masses involved in stuff that is a big divide and conquer when it wasn't anything but a manipulation. But that's how we got the space program. That's how the CIAs and the FBIs kind of got started. And that's where you get all these weird programs that they started, where they were messing with people, like MK Ultra, Mind Control Ultra. The K is control, because I think that's how the Germans spell control, with a K. And they ran that thing out of, Canada. It's like the CIA and the FBI ran that thing. It was the CIA, I guess. They ran it out of Canada till they got caught. But they never really shut it down. They just transferred it. I'm probably, what seems to be, the stuff I've been dealing with is from MK Ultra seeds. And that's where you get these Manchurian candidates. That's where you get where they're messing with, children sometimes, even in weird ways, or doing all these weird cloning situations and stuff. They have a lot of weird. Plum Island, look it up. I talked about the Lyme disease. That was created by some German scientist that they put on Plum Island. Plum Island just sounds weird. And some of the different things, it's kind of crazy. A lot of people, call it conspiracy or whatever. But then, these are all documented situations. Then they had Project High Jump. You can look into that too if you like. But there's a lot of interesting stuff. But that's why they went into all these different places to get all these chalices and things to give them spiritual authority and spiritual help. They thought they would get using them with the real society. They wanted to get all of these major pieces of art and things that were used, like the Holy Grail, and they were looking for the Ark of the Covenant, right? Just like Indiana Jones. It's true, see? They're showing you in that movie in the 80s. And that's a whole interesting topic. Where is that thing? I have a couple of opinions of it. It could have been taken up with Elisha and the fiery chariot that came down for him. Or it could be in Ethiopia. They have this weird situation with this building. They built the building around it, and the hallways are too small to take it out, and they would use these priests with these AK-47s to protect it, and they go blind every so many years, because after protecting the Holy Grail for 6 or 7 years, you go blind because of the glory that's on it. I don't know, though. There's many different situations where that thing could be, but if you had grabbed a hold of that thing, you could defeat anybody. It's probably off Earth by now, but Nevertheless, I wanted to talk about narcissism, and it didn't happen again. Anyway, and that's how the Palestinian war started, because what they did is they went down into the land of what was Israel once England gave it to them, and they basically threw people out of their homes and took them over and said, "This is my house now. You go over there." And, a lot of people will say, well, it was their land or whatever, but God wouldn't do that. I don't think so. So you had people that were, thrown over some wiry fence 2 miles away, and every day they couldn't go over there, but they could see people living in their home. And then they were starting to get oppressed. And you can call it what you want, but that's kind of what's been going on there and how it got that way, but they don't talk about that in history like that. But anyway, yeah, the narcissist. So if I could give the narcissist some empowerment, I mean, in a good way, in an empathic way, it would be, instead of holding all this junk up in your head, all these feelings, if you would just pour them out, you'd probably get a lot more. It would be a lot more helpful for you, because what you do is you get stuck in the head, and you're carrying around all this junk, and you're just making up your own weird conclusions and concocting all these crazy ideas. That's because you don't evaluate your emotions. You just come to a decision that somebody's doing something evil to you, and then you devise a plan to destroy them. You can't do that. If you work naturally, you will let your emotions out when they need to come out, and you won't hold them all in. They call that a spiritual jail, spiritual prison. So people that don't go to prison on a physicality level, God will put them in a spiritual prison, to where they'll just have their head turning, and they won't ever be able to get out of it. And what they don't tell you a lot, I'm going to tell you something good right here. When you have people that have a lot of mental issues, mental illness issues, do you know what they come from a lot of times? It's because they dabbled in too much witchcraft, and they got a lot of blowback. Because let's say if you're trying to throw witchcraft on somebody that's a righteous individual, God won't allow it, because they're protected. So it's going to come back, and it's going to give you blowback. Basically, you're casting a spell, you're paying tens of thousands of dollars to have some practitioner do it, and they're probably telling you that it's not going to work, and I don't want to do it. So they'll pay them a bunch of money to do it anyway, to go against their own practice. And a lot of times the witch doctor or the witchcraft practitioner will tell them, I don't like this, but I'll do it, and they'll try to maybe perform it in a way to where it won't backfire on them. It's kind of like they get an agreement made to where, hey, if this comes back, it come back on you, not me. Or they'll refuse it, because it's against their, what they believe, their beliefs. And it's true, it's their law. And so a lot of them won't do it. They'll refuse it. Tell them to go to some other practitioner. But some practitioners will do it for the right amount of money. And a lot of times practitioners will wind up unalive, because they performed something evil on somebody who didn't deserve it, according to the ordinance. And some will take the money and say they did it, because people are pissed off, and they won't take no for an answer, and they won't perform it, but they'll say they did. I'll just keep the money, because they won't take no for an answer. Or they may put the witchcraft on them, the people that paid for it. So there's a lot of interesting things that can happen. But what happens when you get a lot of backfire witchcraft? It leads to mental illness. But they don't tell you that. But that's the truth, y'all. Because it's spiritual, and it attacks your brain, your mind, your will, and your emotions on another level. And it's idiopathic. It's not something that a physical doctor can come up with where it started. I don't know, man. They just got this. I don't know how it happened. That's idiopathic. We don't know where it began. There's no scientific reason why it occurred, but it occurred. So those are things that will happen. That's interesting. But the other thing is, a lot of times when they pay tens of thousands of dollars, or hundreds of thousands, or millions of dollars sometimes, to do all these death magic and all these candle magic, mirror magic, glamour, all this stuff, and God won't allow it to go through, because it's not acceptable. It's kind of like trying to arrest an innocent person. A just individual that works for the police department is not going to do it. Now, an unjust person might, for the right amount of money, right? That would be a corrupt officer. So what happens when they do this? They get the blowback for it. So what backfire or blowback would be, it taps them out. They tapping out, man. That's what they call it. And what happens is they're paying all this money for the witchcraft, and it's actually witchcraft that's going to come absolutely 100% back on them. So they might pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to perform all this witchcraft magic on people, heart attack spells, and then they're wondering why they have chest pain, need heart transplants, they can't breathe, and they're dying, or they die, or people can predict their deaths because you're doing death magic on people who it won't go through to. It's being blocked spiritually. And these are ways that you know that the spirit realm exists. If you're somebody who doesn't, these people eventually will figure it out. But narcissists, man, they're something else. It's like they're missing pieces. And, that's the thing. You have to accept who you are. If you're going to be evil, just be evil and accept that you're not rational. That would be one thing if the narcissist would be like, I'm not going to be rational about this. I'm going to accept the fact that I'm evil and I'm not rational. No, they're finding some rational reason why it's still okay, even though it's not. And people define it for them. And a lot of times, like I said, you come into their life to help them. You were sent by God. I mean, maybe unbeknownst to you, but you might have been a last-ditch effort to help them, and you truly wanted to help them. And you stuck it out with them because you believed in them. But they didn't believe in you, and then somehow it comes back on you like it's your fault. Or people will say, like what happened to me, these people put all this death magic on me, and then, your ex from way back when, who's devised all this evil plans against you and been cheating on you and doing all this crap, they'll blame it on you. Well, it wasn't that big a deal. You're taking it a little too far. This is how they believe, that you're taking it a little too far. I didn't do that much. You tried to take me out. Like, I had like seven unaliving witchcraft practitioners do the spell work on me. That's just the death magic, and they work on the first time, y'all. These cost a lot of money. We're talking about, I think they spent like, maybe, I don't know, millions of dollars on work on me, to do work on me. And even if you're protected, you're going to deal with it on some sort of level. Confusion spells and things, they are very irritating. You get annoyed. You may be protected, but you're going to go through rigorous side effects of it. So it's not cool, y'all. It's totally unfair, and it's totally unwarranted, but it's very hard to track. But a lot of times, the people in my situations, you can find the receipts on them. And they went all over the world to find some of the best practitioners too, man. And what happens is you get paid for that. Because it was unwarranted, God will protect you, and because you went through that harm, it will level you up and it will bring them down. Then they're wondering why they're in the trash pit, or why people are passing out and unalived. They want to blame you for that. Then they want to call you a witch or a warlock, because their friends are dying. But you didn't do anything. You're telling them to stop all the time. You're asking people on your channel, help me. Like 6 months ago, I'd be like, I need help, y'all. No help coming. No help coming. I got to figure it out for myself. And you got all these corrupt officials, and you got to figure out your own case. I'm my own detective, and I'm good at what I do. And I don't even know half of these people. I think I got it figured out, though. I mean, I haven't gone over it recently, but I've learned a lot in the last just few days about who some of the people are. And some of them I have met, and some of them I've seen before or whatever. But a lot of them I didn't. A lot of them, it was to really, they were originally going to take they were taking my ex for a ride. It was like her ex, really karmic. She had this ex, and she went back to him, and he's like, he is the devil. Literally. I don't think you can get anybody worse than this. This guy is like working with the FBI officials. I don't know. His father was a high-ranking FBI official. I don't even know if he's alive anymore, because a lot of them are kicking the bucket, have been in the last year or so. But these people unalive a lot of people, man. And this is how they would do it. Witchcraft, if you do it through witchcraft, people will drop dead if they're not covered. And then they can get life insurance policies out on them, do all these different things, and it looks like they did it from afar. It's like you wipe your hands with it until you get somebody like me who is aware of the spiritual world and knows the Lord and has direction, or got direction at the last moments of what probably would have taken me out. I was the game changer, y'all. But I operate with goodness, and I want to see all people have justice, man, really. Thanks for watching. Until next time, Soldier, peace be out.